Welcome to video 4 in my mini series on SWOT analysis, how I'm encouraging you to use it for your own professional development, which will obviously have a knock-on effect in your personal life as well. So what are threats? I think the first thing is do not panic. Threats exist. It's important to accept them. They exist, and you really need to just accept the fact that they're around and do not panic. Okay, do not allow them to make you immobile. Move through them, identify them. We can minimize risks. Through my conclusion video, I'll talk about this, but by highlighting our strengths and really working through our weaknesses, we can minimize the impact of threats. So we can't do that though if we haven't identified them. So I'm going to ask you a few questions to help you identify some of the threats that maybe you might know about, but you might be disregarding at the moment because you're finding them stressful. But if we accept they exist and we accept that we are not going to panic about it, we're actually going to put a plan in place to minimize it, then it should be okay. So the first one is, do you have any obstacles at work? Think about that, write down what they are. The second one is your job changing in any way, shape or form. And again, be realistic, don't panic, just write it down. Third one, is technology changing your job? And again, be realistic, write down the answer, how it's impacting your job, how it is likely to impact your job, because the way technology sweeps through industries, it's really important to understand that that can be a threat, and how are you going to deal with that? What plan are you going to put in place so that you're ahead of those people that are not taking the time to be aware of the threats, and how taking steps to minimize them. So that's the third one I'd look at, as technology. And then I think the fourth one that is really important, if you've looked at my video for weaknesses, I want you to think about, and if you haven't, do it now, I want you to think about your weaknesses and what threat that brings to your role. So I'll give you a good example. So often I'll hear, a weakness might be, oh, I can't authentically communicate with my team. I'm not really good a people manager. But then there might be someone in your team that has excellent authentic communication with people, is quite inspiring. They might be, trying to sort of drive meetings and things like that when you're in there. So perhaps look at your own weaknesses, again, not as judgment, just as fact. And then what we're going to do in the next video, we're going to understand how we use the weaknesses and what we need to do to really minimize the risk of those threats. So it is obviously really important to understand the threats out there. We have to accept they exist and not panic. We have to accept that if we, the best amount of control we can have over them is to minimize them through using our strengths and weaknesses effectively. And they can stop us achieving our goals. So it's really important to recognize what they are, depending on where we are in our professional journey, and put in place a plan to minimize those threats. So I would encourage you to write the answers down to that. I'm obviously here to help you work through any of that. If you'd like to do this SWOT analysis in more detail with myself, do please get in touch.